Hey, bring it. Last week, I had the privilege of sitting with my parents during church because our very own Mark Buttram brought the message. And you know how every church does something a little different. You know, maybe their systems are different, but my father hasn't been at a church that passed an offering plate for a while because they're used to having just a box in the back. We'll hit you from every angle. We got boxes and baskets, but I'm sitting there, and he had taken communion. He's holding his trash, and the basket comes, so he dumps his trash in it. Like, there you go. So we make fun of him. We're like, what are you doing? You're throwing your trash in the offering plate, you know. Poor Grandpa has to leave with us just making fun of him. I was just sitting there just now. I've been here before. And the basket came over, and he held it up, and by instinct, I went over, oh, my trash? Oh. I just about did it! That makes me curious. Who in here has ever thrown you've thrown your trash in our offering plate? Who's done that? Is this just a Kleeman thing? Man. Hey, I have a message for you from the Gospel of John. John's unique how he talks. I think it might be Jesus, and John is showing us what Jesus did. It is possible that John is retelling the story in a certain way. But what John does is he shares the true story of what happened in a way where it's not only telling us the story, it's also an illustration of a spiritual truth. And there's a few times where this is very obvious, where John, he will share a miracle story, and then just a little bit later, he'll share a teaching of Jesus right afterwards. So like today, he's going to feed thousands of people with a small meal. And then, by the end of the chapter, he's standing in front of everyone saying, I'm the bread of life. So he's slapping an event with the teaching, usually a miracle story, not always, and he's taking them and slapping them together to tell a deeper story. So it could be that John, the author, is looking back and remembering, going, oh, he taught him this, and he did this, and John is putting it together. I think, though, it's Jesus himself. And I think Jesus, whether he's going, hey, that miracle I just did, I've got an idea, or more than likely, maybe he's going, there's something I'm going to share, and I've got this big plan, so I'm going to do this miracle, and then I'm going to teach this story. Regardless, John does this quite often. It's kind of unique in his gospel. And so today I want to show you Jesus' miracle, show you his illustration of his teaching, which is a pretty impressive illustration. If I were to do an illustration, maybe I could tell some story of what happened to me, or maybe I could have a prop. I could here's toothpaste, and do something with it, and maybe it'll be memorable or not. Jesus goes, I'm going to do an illustration. Miracle! Now listen up. It's like, you got our attention. You have our attention, Lord. That's his illustrations. To do this well, I want to share also the backdrop, though. So I'm going to start in Exodus 16, and I want to look at what bread meant for the Israelites. And then we'll come to John 6 and look at his miracle, and then the teaching beyond it. So it's going to be kind of a big teaching on the bread of life. Did you come here hungry today? Because you are. You just don't know it. There's a hunger in your soul, a thirst that only Jesus can fill. Only he can satisfy, only he can quench it. There's something missing in your life, whether you know it now or not. And if you know it, you become desperate for it. You need Jesus Christ in your life. There's a group of the Israelites. They left Egypt. And American Christians were so funny how we look back at this story. We critique them to death. We see these Israelites, they go out into this desert and they spend all this time whining and grumbling, and we mock them and look down on them. It's so ironic. American Christians are making fun of the Israelites for all of their grumbling. Seriously? We grumble at everything. We're the biggest bunch of whiners ever. Like, the preacher didn't shake my hand today. Can you believe that? You know, what color is that carpet? I can't believe we did that carpet. Did you hear that group met over there? They didn't even invite Susie. Why wouldn't they invite Susie? Susie should be involved in that. We complain and gripe about everything, don't we? And then we critique those whiny little immature Israelites. Do you know what they were complaining about? We don't have food. We don't have any food. We want to eat. It's like, what are they whining about anyways? Those whiners. Can't believe they're grumbling again, those whiny Israelites. I have a question to ask you. If I were to come over to your house with my entire family, let's say this weekend, next weekend, Saturday, 8 of us, who in here thinks that you could pull off a meal for yourselves and 8 Kleemans joining you? Okay, Saturday. You have to figure it all out. A lot of hands went up. How about not me? What if the entire church, we're all going to show up here and you're in charge of feeding everyone, both services, 450, 500 people, okay? Who in here thinks I can pull that off Saturday? I only see one hand. There's 2 hands. Someone's voting for someone else. No, you got to figure it out. You're going to feed us. You have to find the food. Or what if we're all going to show up? We're going to invite everyone. We're going to go Memorial Stadium. We're going to show up 50 to 70,000 people, not for a football game. We're going to eat. Who thinks they could pull off a meal for everyone? You see, Moses, he left Egypt with 1 million people. 1 million. One man saying, "Follow me." They walk through the Red Sea, and then he takes them into a desert. You see why they might have been grumbling? You see, we critique them to death, don't we? I don't think we should. I think I would have been grumbling too. I really do. Food's kind of important. It kind of is. It gives us our nutritional substance that we need. Carbs, protein, minerals, fats. These are good things. Food helps give us our energy. You need it. You don't have it, you're going to start getting dizzy. Has anyone ever gone without food and you get that huge headache? And I mean, food helps your mental health, doesn't it? You just had that huge headache and it's like, I can't think right now. And have you ever been, well, yeah, there you go. Hangry. Who knows what hangry is? Yeah, it's when you're so angry because you're hungry. You're hangry. Oh, I just need a meal right now. Yeah, for children, it's very important to have food, continual food for growth and development for your cells, for your muscles, for your bones. It helps with your immune system. It helps protect against diseases. Food's kind of important. That's what they wanted. They wanted food. That's what they're complaining about. We don't have anything to eat. There's 1 million of us in a desert. That's what they're grumbling about. That's what they went to Moses about. Don't critique them hard. You know you'd be whining right there with them. You know it. You want to eat, and you want your children to eat, and you want your grandmother to eat. You want everyone to have food. And that's why they were saying, maybe it'd be better for us to go back and be slaves because we could at least eat. Eating is important. I've even been surprised as I ponder it. I wonder how much of our social health comes from food. So much of our eating together, sitting down and enjoying a meal with each other, it fosters family bonding, relationships. They go to Moses and they're like, we have to eat. We're going to kill you and go back to Egypt if you don't do something about this. That makes sense to complain when you're starving. Moses goes to the Lord and says, they're done with me, Lord. They need to eat. And the Lord has a plan. And he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to send you food. I'll send you some quail in the evening. And in the morning, you're going to go out and you're going to find food. And so we come to this in Exodus chapter 16. That evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. And when the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? What is it? That's the word manna. Manna means, what is it? What is it? I don't know, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. So they went out and gathered what they needed. This mysterious bread on the ground of the sand floor, formed from the dew from heaven. We're told in the text that it was white, and it tasted good. It had the flavor of honey inside of it. And they ate it, and their bellies were filled. And the next morning, the same thing. And they continued to do this day after day. God, He didn't just provide bread. He kept His people alive. He gave them life in a desert. I can't imagine keeping myself alive in a desert, let alone 1 million people. And yet, He provided for them and gave them life. And they ate and ate for 40 years. For 40 years, God provided for His people and fed them. I don't think anyone else could have done that. I don't think I could have fed 1 million people in a desert for 40 years. How would you find enough food for everyone? How would you do this? God did it through this mysterious, magical bread on the ground every day, picking up enough for everyone in the family. That's what God can do. He can fill the hunger inside of your belly. He's powerful enough to do it. He's done it before. This was not just some message of the past that was forgotten. Moses wanted this to be remembered. God wanted His people to remember this event forever. And so, the command came down. Exodus chapter 16, verse 32. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt." So Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar, put an omer of manna in it, then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come." As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put manna with the tablets of the covenant law, those 10 commandments. And the Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to the land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. So God provided and provided and provided and fed them and kept them alive. And then it's like, now, I want you to remember this forever. I want your great, 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 great grandchildren to know I provide. I satisfy. I quench. I fill. I can do this. I can give you life. And so this jar became a sacred jar placed in the Ark of the Covenant with the 10 Commandments, a continual reminder that God is our provider. Time passed. 1,500 years went by, and Jesus was at the peak of his ministry. He was drawing people in by the thousands. He had been teaching these powerful messages, and people were coming to hear. He was performing miracles, and people were coming to be healed or to be wowed. And he spoke to a group that knew that story of the manna very well. This particular occasion, Jesus wasn't wanting to be with people. We actually learned this from the other Gospels. He got into his boat to get away from everyone. "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place. Let's get some rest." He had just found out John the Baptist was dead, his cousin, and he wanted to escape. So he sailed to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and as he was sailing into the shore, he looked up and saw a massive crowd. 5,000 men, plus all the wives, plus all those single girls, plus all the kiddos. Tens of thousands of people. And it says he saw them, and he saw that they were like sheep without a shepherd. And so he sailed up and decided, even though he didn't want to be around them, to pour himself out and to teach them. And so he began to teach, and he taught, and he taught. Back then, they had it really good. Their sermons didn't last just half an hour, lasted all day long. I know everyone deep down inside, you'd prefer me just go all day, wouldn't you? He preached, and he preached, and he preached, and everyone heard this message. Can you imagine hearing teachings from God himself? Jesus Christ and God in the flesh, telling people exactly what the human heart is like for real. No mistakes, no wondering whether or not this guy did his study right or not, or whether he missed something. You hear directly from the voice of God. They heard the teaching all day long, and it started to get dark. And as it started to get dark, stomachs started to growl. The disciples went over to Jesus and said, Jesus, there's a lot of people here. And McDonald's, it's kind of far away. I'm kind of getting nervous, Lord. If we start heading out now, I think people are going to start getting dizzy on the way, and they're going to fall down. We better send them home quick. Let's get them out of here. I see some small children in this crowd and some elderly people. They need to eat. You may not know this, but food's kind of important, isn't it? It's kind of important. And Jesus, he turned to his disciples and said, No, I've got a better idea. You feed them. And you don't have till Saturday. You feed them, and you do it right now. Right now, I want you to go find enough food to feed all these people. Yeah, they ain't happening. Even if we had the food right in front of us, we couldn't afford it. It's like, no, I'm Jesus, you're the follower, go do it. Are you kidding me? Would you be ticked? He wants us to feed everyone right now. Go out trying to find this meal. There's a person in the Bible named Andrew. And you may have heard this before. Every time Andrew is mentioned in the Bible, he's always bringing someone to Jesus. Every church needs an Andrew. Someone who's just always bringing someone to Jesus. Hey, here's my brother. Come take him to Jesus. Here's some Greeks. Here comes Jesus. And now he found a small little boy. A little boy who had a meal. 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. You got a meal? You got some food? We all need this. And this young boy offered his meal to tens of thousands of people. They bring it over and said, okay, we got something here. I found the food you wanted, Jesus. And Jesus goes, perfect. This is great. Okay, everyone, sit down. Go tell everyone to sit down. We're going to have a feast. How can you have a feast? Because Jesus, he can fill the hunger in your life. You came here with a void today. You came here trying to fill a need. I'm telling you, Jesus can fill it. He can. Everyone sits down. He prays over this small meal. And we read this story. John chapter 6, verse 10. Jesus said, have the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. And when they had had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with pieces left over from the 5 barley loaves and by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus had performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who is to come into this world. Wow! How'd he do this? So Jesus performs a miracle. And honestly, it is a miracle that I have troubles visualizing. Does anyone else see it in their head? I can't quite visualize what the actual miracle looked like. I've tried to picture it before. Was Jesus taking bread and ripping it? And as he ripped it, there was bread still there? Is that the visual I'm supposed to take? Rip, 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 rip. Thousands of people. That'd take a long time if that's what it was, but it could be something like that. Or was it just this explosion of food? Oh yeah, this will work. Pray, okay, start passing out, and all of a sudden food's coming from every angle, and people are confused. Where'd this come from? I don't know where all the food's coming from. Was it like that? I don't know visually what it looks like, but somehow he took all this food and it just exploded into this feast. That's what he can do. Then after everyone had had their fill, and it was late, and the leftovers were more than what they started with, everyone starts to lay down to go to sleep. And Jesus is still wanting to escape. So he comes up with an exit strategy. And he told his disciples, you go across the Sea of Galilee, I'll go up the mountain and join you later. So they get on the boat and sail away. Jesus comes up on the mountain. He waits till everyone's asleep. He prays, and then he goes down the mountain and walks across the Sea of Galilee, like only Jesus can do, moonwalking across. I can't moonwalk, though. He gets to the other side. Well, he joins up with his disciples on the boat, gets to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and then everyone wakes up. Morning's here. They start looking around. Where'd he go? I don't know. Was he on that boat? He wasn't on the boat. Well, where'd he go? I don't know. I thought he went up the mountain. They start looking for him. They can't find Jesus. He escaped. They want Jesus. They have to find him. So they start looking for him, and then they take off and walk around the sea to find him. And when they catch up to him, Jesus seems to be at odds with them. They're looking for him, and Jesus is frustrated that they're even looking for him. And look at the story. So we've had this big miracle event now. And it says, verse 25, when they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And Jesus answered, very truly I tell you, you're looking for me not because you saw the signs, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you, for on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. Okay? Well, then what do we have to do the work God requires? The work of God is this, to believe in the one whom he has sent. Believe in me. That's the life. That's the food. That's what you need. You need Jesus in your life. You need the Son of Man, this Messiah. He's the one that can fill that void. And then the people had the gall. If you want to critique them, here's the time. Here's the time. Well, what sign can you give us that we can see it and believe in you? As their mouth still has the taste of the bread from the night before. What will you do? Our ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. No. Very truly, I tell you, it's not Moses who's given you bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Okay, sir, always give us this bread. And then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. And it's like this whole point of this miracle, the whole point of Moses and the manna was just to prepare people for this truth. Jesus is the life that you need in your life. He's the one that can fill you up. Have you tasted him? Have you finally come to Jesus Christ, or are you still trying to eat what this world has to offer? It would have been so ridiculous if the Israelites spent all their time eating sand. If they picked up the manna and went, and then they ate the sand, then we could critique them desperately. No, eat the manna. Eat what God has provided for you. It would have been ridiculous if the thousands of people before Jesus took the bread and fish and tossed it aside and said, I'm good with the dirt. There's some grass here too. I'll eat this. No, eat what Jesus Christ provides you. And I'm telling you, it is just as foolish for you to try to fill your life with things that will not quench your soul. That's what people try to do all the time. And they go into this world and they try to fill up with as much money as they possibly can. I'll fill my life up with wealth. I'll fill my life up with lust and sex. I'll fill my life up with partying or avoidance, or I will fill my life up with fame and fortune. What does this life have to offer me? And I'm telling you, nothing. It's sand, it's dirt, it's garbage, and it will not quench your soul. if you really want to be filled, that hunger that is deep inside of your soul can only be filled by Jesus Christ, and he has offered himself to you. He offered himself on a cross. He offered his body as a sacrifice for your sin. He's the great physician. He's the great healer. And if there's a missing piece in your life, you just don't know it yet. You're looking for Jesus. Jesus continues with his message. And he says in verse 53, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life. And I will raise him up at the last day, for my flesh is real food, and my body is real drink." He was not trying to teach us about how important it was to take communion. He was trying to teach us how important it was for us to have faith in him. And it is time today for you to place your faith in Jesus Christ. Come to him and taste that the Lord is good. You are living in a desert, and you will die without his meal. And he offered himself up as the meal. Take me, eat my flesh, drink my blood. I am the source. I can give you nutrients. I can give you a social life. I can give you everything that you're missing. You need to grow and develop. Taste me. I can help you spiritually grow. Eat me. You need nourishment in your soul. I can do that. Come to me. Come to me. Let's pray. Lord, what a good and faithful God you are. You are this God that is beautiful in the way you even tell a story as you interact with your people. You not only tell a story for each generation, you tell a story for generations to come. You had this story that was 1,500 years in the making. It's an illustration of a reality that we all need you. Lord, there are some here, probably today, that have come here right now that feel empty inside. There are some even here that have tasted you and they know that you're good, but they've wandered away from the feast. Lord, I pray that we would turn back to you. Lord, I just want to thank you at this moment. Here's the reality, Lord. Every person in this room has sinned against you. And every person was living now in a desert, and we are destined to die without you. We need your sacrifice. We need your atoning sacrifice of the cross to take our punishment and to exchange your life for mine so that we might live. I love you, Lord. I thank you so much for your Son, and it's in his name that we all pray. Amen.